Carolyn Hinds, film critic and journalist, and I'm here for KCrush American Magazine, and I'm at the 2024 Jeonju International Film Festival, and today I am joined by filmmaker Namkoong to talk about her film Time to Be Strong, which was commissioned by the Korean Human Rights Organization, and it's basically talking about the struggles of K-pop artists and trainees. And I think this film is very timely, and it's also kind of very prescient considering what's been happening in the news within the Korean music industry recently. And it's very interesting and it's important now because so many people around the world are paying attention to K-pop and Korean culture and Korean cinema and the Korean industry, and we need a film like this to really give people an insight look at how the industry affects the artists, especially those who've been essentially discarded from the industry. But first of all, thank you so much, Namkoong, for joining me. Yay!
Yay, thank you.
So first of all, talk to me about being commissioned to make this film.
역시 한국어로 해야겠네요. 저희 영화가 이제 국가인권위원회에서 만드는 인권 영화 시리즈가 있어요. 이제 많은 감독님들, 초창기에는 뭐 박찬욱 감독님 같은 분들이 단편도 만들었고 그런 인권 영화 시리즈가 계속 있어 왔는데 그 인권 영화 프로젝트의 일환으로 저에게 연락이 왔어요. 저 전작 10개월의 미래를 보고 연락이 와서 아무 기획 없이 시작하게 된 작품입니다.
So your previous film, 10 Months, it does kind of fall in line with this film because I can see why they would contact you, because 10 Months is talking about female reproductive rights. Yes. and the choice that women can have to be pregnant or not to be pregnant, and then once they become pregnant, all of the struggles that come with that in Korean society and in any society being dominated by patriarchy. Yes. And this one is basically, in a sense, talking about the same way about how the culture of Korea and especially the Korean music industry impacts both young men and young women. Mm-hmm. So I can see why they would call you, because they'll be like, yeah, like you understand it from a cultural and humane perspective.
Yes, and it's also a project where artists can come in and make films about human rights, but still have a freedom of expression in that independent film format. So it was interesting. And at first I didn't know what I would make a film about, but I generally have an interest in young people in their teens, in their 20s, and when you just look around Korean society, you can feel that they're living in this really high pressure culture of competition. And since we're in this K-pop renaissance, may I say, there are so many people who want to be idol stars and who like them and who love them, and obviously I like a lot of K-pop songs too. And then there's this whole system of making these K-pop groups, and it all starts with trainees and companies who train these young kids to be like the, I guess, source material for idol groups. And many young people aspire for that, and many people work in that industry. And I suddenly realized that it felt like a real 약간 축소판처럼 느껴졌어요. 한국 청년들이 겪고 있는 어떤 문화, 어떤 정서적 문화의 축소판이랑 되게 닮아 있다. 이 아이돌 육성 시스템이 그렇게 느꼈어요.
When I first started to pay attention to K-pop, that would be around probably 2016, 2017. I had known about K-pop before, like a number of years before, but in Barbados I knew about it, but we didn't have access to the music the way we do now. But then when I really started to really pay attention to it around 2015 to 2017, I really started to look into the industry because it's like on the surface it seems very glitzy, you know, very glamorous and very fun. You know, you have all of these young people like doing all of these complex dances and music, and I love the music. Like, but once you really start to pay attention to how the behind the scenes of the industry, you realize how not only complex it is, but how exploitive it is. And that's what this film really gets into, the exploitation and how it affects these kids mentally, especially for those who don't succeed. And there's more groups that don't succeed than there are that do. And for a lot of people who don't understand, like, there's dozens and dozens of groups that debut every year, and maybe like 0.5% last more than their first year. There's so many, there's literally thousands of former trainees living in Korea who work regular jobs who will be like, oh, I was an idol. And you're like, what do you mean? Oh yeah, no, I was a trainee. And like, that's standard in like Korea. And I think that's unique to Korea as well.
Yes, I guess. And since I am in the film industry as well, it seems that all the talent in Korea, whether it's musical talent or acting careers, everyone thinks that they should start in the idol system. So that is kind of a trend that a lot of people aspire to, I guess. And I also meet many actors or actresses who have been trainees themselves. So it's just not that far away from our lives.
Yeah, it's not far, you're not far removed from it at all. And the film really gets into that. So the film follows three main protagonists. So there's Sunmi, Sumin, Taehee, and Isana. And there are three very distinct characters, but they all share very similar traumas and experiences. So Sumin, she's kind of like the lead, what you would call it, the lead protagonist of the trio, and she is the mature one. She's the leader. She's the one who takes all of the responsibility on them. And then there's Sarang, who is very childlike. She gets very distracted very easily, and she's kind of like a unassuming character. You don't realize like everything that's going on with her beneath the surface. Like, she's very quick to get angry, and the way you portray their different trauma responses is very interesting. So like for Sumin, I think her trauma response is she becomes very protective very quickly, but she's also very quick. She overworks to please. Like, that's what she's been trained to do. She overworks herself to please people, and she doesn't eat, you know, like you insert into the film eating disorders, because like for a lot of these, for all of them, like they have to maintain certain beauty standards and physical standards, and that manifests in her having an eating disorder. And for Taehee, he's interesting as especially as the lone male. He breaks my heart because like he smiles a lot to everyone. And you think, oh, like he just wants to be nice. Like Sumin is like, why do you keep smiling at strangers? They'll think that you're strange. And I realized the reason he does that is he's been trained to smile. You know, he's been trained to always be what we would say on, to always be performing, like to please people, to make them look at him, and he's to please people. And especially as a male, like, because in society, you know, people say tell women to smile. You know, they smile, like to please men. But he, as a male character, he's been trained to smile to please women. Right? And so like so I think the three of them is interesting. So talk about developing these three characters.
Well, it was a process of interviewing many people. We had unofficial interviews through private channels. So I met a lot of ex-idols, let's say, and ex-trainees from these companies, and I just asked them about their life, and that's how I started this film actually. After deciding that it was going to be about these kids, I just went out and interviewed many ex-K-pop stars, let's say, but not so successful. And what was concerning and striking was how 씩씩하다, how 이 이야기를 굉장히 트라우마틱한 이야기를 이들이 아주 대수롭지 않게 씩씩하게 얘기를 하더라고요. It might, well, not, I wouldn't call it a symptom actually. These are really complex people, and they liked their job as much as they had hardships, but they were all kind of moving past the past, and they knew that they suffered some hardships, but they all spoke about it really casually. So actually that also broke my heart. And so I tried to make these three characters out of these interviews and these stories I've heard, but to really mix them up so that I can protect the identity of them. And there were girls and there were boys, but they had their similarities. But a lot of the girls, they really had these eating disorders, and it's really about the appearance. So they were very, very restricted in what they could eat and how they could look. And the boys, they had less of that problem, but also they didn't have any artistic freedom. And so that was and all of them had this problem with the contracts. It didn't seem like a big issue when they signed up, but after these groups failed, it all came to the contract, because they have this 7-year contract, and you can't just get out of it. So I just tried to mix all those, I guess, experiences into these three characters.
Yeah, when you mentioned about them talking about some of the most traumatic things with a very light tone is something that I've noticed very often. Like I watch a lot of Korean variety shows, and a lot of K-pop artists attend go on variety shows usually around the time of promotion for like a new album or something, and they'll say something, or they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't eat for like 2 days," and I'll be like, "Pause? you pause? That's a problem." But they say that it's just so normal for them that they don't realize that to anyone outside that would be an issue, you know. And or they'll talk about having to for the girls having to maintain very narrow ideas of beauty standards. Like they have to be very thin, you know, and like they have to be very very pale, you know, like they don't tan or anything like that because of the whole pale look. And I remember I was aware of it, but I wasn't really understanding until like I think a couple years ago. I watched a group that was coming back. They had been on hiatus for a while because some of the members were enlisted, so like they were coming back together. And one of the guys was talking about he had to do a photo shoot, and he said he didn't eat for 3 days, and he didn't drink any water for 2 days because to be dehydrated, that's what makes the muscles pop. You know, that's what really makes their muscles really be defined. And I literally paused the video and I was texting to my friends. I'm like, these guys don't eat or they don't drink water to prepare for these photo shoots. And it just made me think of how for fans, like, and this is not just in K-pop, this is in the film industry,
Yes,
you know, for like men have to maintain their own idea of beauty standards. And the things that they have to do to maintain these beauty standards is very destructive to their bodies as like we always talk about the girls, we talk about eating disorders and all of that, but we don't really talk about how the guys themselves have to maintain these beauty standards. And in the film, like, it's like eating disorders for men isn't discussed, but it made me think of how for the character of Tae-hee, I think he kind of was like self-conscious as a man, you know. He was very self-conscious, but he's always so accustomed to performing that that's his trauma response, you know, to deflect and to distract people from really paying attention to him, but like to perform to do it.
Well, for Tae-hee, I actually think that he is a character who really enjoys attention. So it might not be all performance, because the reason Tae-hee became a K-pop guy was probably because he liked the attention, and he likes people, he likes to smile at people. And it's for the character, I think it's just his nature, and Sarang as well. Sarang, she was a dancer, and basically she's a character who just likes to dance, likes the music, and you know, likes getting lost in the performance. So these are the aspects that also got them into the industry as well. So it's not all, I guess it's not all trauma, but still that's the way they cope with people. So, and for Tae-hee, he tries to laugh off, he tries to smile off at all these things he can't handle or control. So that's what I wanted to put in the characters. And of course, all performing actors or performance people have these standards, these professional things to do to maintain their image. But what I thought was kind of different for K-pop is that in this system, they don't really get to choose their identity. They're just prepared to be anything the people make them into. So I think that's kind of the aspect I wanted to pay attention to, because from a very young age, these kids, they learn to be someone who people want them to be.
Yeah.
And I think that has a toll. And I couldn't just, show the things they went through. So I tried to make this a trip and just a light conversation about some things. And I wanted the film to get us into their lives in a very 둘러가는 방식으로.
Detour, yeah, because most of the film is set on Jeonju Island, and the reason they're there is because they never got to go on school trips as children. You know, like they're kind of like in arrested development, like their entire their childhood, their teenage years, their formative years was devoted to K-pop, was devoted to working for companies and for people, CEOs who didn't appreciate them, and like they now as adults are discovering who they are. Well, for most people, like we get to discover who we want to be at like 15, 16, 17. They never got to do that because, as you said, they had people telling them who to be. They have personas that they have to put on, each person in a group has a very specific identity to portray, and like that's who they are, that's devoted. They have to be that on stage, but they also have to be that off stage because they're always being watched,
Yes, and basically they're starting work way earlier than most.
It's child labor.
It is actually. It is.
Yeah, and for taking them, I love that you said it on Jeju Island, and that this is basically a coming of age story for adults. They're adults, but they're now coming of age as adults, and I love that you put it on the island because it's away from the industry, but it's also away from the pressures of people possibly recognizing them, but it's also away from the, I guess you can say, like the hustle and bustle of like Seoul or whatever, and this is a place where they can relax, you know, where they can really get to be themselves. But in doing that, they also, it shows how even away from the industry physically, they're not away from it mentally. Because like they work in like the orange farm, and Sumin, in Sumin in particular, even while she's there trying to earn them, they're working to earn money, like she's still in that mindset of work, to the point that she collapses.
Yes, right. Yes.
So talk to me about filming on Jeju. And using the setting, I think of the beach in particular as a place of like transition for them, because there's a scene with Tae-hee and Sumin on the beach where he's like on a sandbank and he's talking about he's overwhelmed with the debt that he's told to pay, a debt he shouldn't even have to pay, you know, a debt that he acquired as a teenager, as a child. And I kind of saw the symbolism of him being on the sandbank where he's stuck. Yes. He's there and he's being up, and like the tide is rising, and Sumin is telling him the water's coming, and like he's stuck. He feels like he's drowning, and she herself is beginning to drown too, you know, in a way, because she's walking and the water's getting deeper and deeper. And you had mentioned the contracts, like once they leave, a lot of them they have to pay off the investment, which is like ridiculous. You shouldn't, like, they're children, but as you said, they sign contracts that they shouldn't have to sign. But it's talking about, I think this is not just for people in K-pop, for anyone who has debt or anyone who has something that they're struggling with. You know, it could be school, it could be work, it could be family, where you feel like you can't get away. And I saw that scene, to me, as like, I think my favorite scene in the entire film, because I love the visual of them being on the water in the sandbank. Talk to me about like coming up with like the scenes and like figuring out how to visually portray how he and Sumin, and I would say Sarang feel mentally.
Well, the reason we went to Jeju Island was actually my close friend and the cinematographer for this film was living in Jeju for a year, that year. And so we hung around a lot in Jeju. And we always wanted to try to make a film where we could be very focused on the camera and the actors and the environment. We always wanted to do that kind of film, and we were talking about that a lot. So when this project came into my hands, I thought, well, this is the perfect chance to do that. It's a small budget film. So, and it has a thing with the budget, because it was so small, and I think there's a way to portray the environment when you get out of Seoul, and because Jeju Island is very 인구 밀도가 낮아요. So we could actually film the environment without all the hustles that would come if we were filming in the city. And we knew the places where we shot. They're not major tourist places. They're just neighborhoods, and we knew that the beach would when the water came in, the beach would disappear, and then when it went out, there'd be like this island. So we thought, let's put this scene on the island, because I think it kind of portrays the isolation that these kids feel, and so it's nice that you saw that in a way.
I enjoy this cinematography because it's very clean. You know what I mean? It's very clean and it doesn't feel, there's not like a lot of things happening in the background of the film. You just have time to focus on them. And apart from the cinematography, something else that I really liked is the costuming for them. Like there's three very distinct styles for the three characters. Like for Sumin, she wears shades of brown and shades of orange and yellow, kind of like, because I guess you could say like the symbol for Jeju Island is oranges, or for the film.
Well, for the costume, actually, I asked the department to use those colors because we knew that those would be the colors of Jeju, like green and brownish colors and green colors and color of the sea, kind of like a nice minty emerald green. And so I think that played out really well. And Sarang, she loses her bag, so she gets another person's bag. And that's what I thought about Sarang, because she doesn't really have a distinct style as a character, but she gets someone else's bag and then she starts to dress up. So that seemed like a transformation for her. And so the colors are like that.
Yeah, I like the Sarang's transition because it shows us like her mental progression as a character, because at the beginning, as I had mentioned, she's almost childlike. She's very easily distracted. She's always listening to music in her headphones, and she's wearing the lightest colors out of all of them. She's wearing like a pink puffer jacket and gray sweats, and like the bag is a red, you can't miss it, a red suitcase, but somehow she forgets it, even though it's this bright suitcase. But she's given one, and she opens it and she starts to wear clothes that are unlike anything she's worn before. They're more mature clothing, you know, like they're very structured. And I kind of saw that as her finally being able to dress herself, but also finally being able to choose who she can be as a person. She gets to choose what she wears. She gets to choose how she wears the clothes she wears, you know? Like, it's like, I like that she's finally giving a choice, like what she wants to do.
Well, I didn't put that much meaning.
That's kind of how I read it.
But still, I think that's pretty much, these kids, they think they had a choice, but they're, style-wise, anyway, I wanted to point that out because she probably doesn't have a personal style, Sarang. And there are many kids, of course, who have personal styles, but Sarang, she's really just a dancer, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
And this bag kind of, when she comes in and goes out, she looks kind of different. And I just wanted to make that more of finding her own style.
It's like a treasure trove. It's like she opened up this treasure box and she's like, so I have something new and to do. And we talked about the cinematography and the costume, but I want to talk a bit about the music, because at the beginning of the film, when they first arrived to Jeju, the music kind of felt discordant and disquieting to me. It kind of made me uncomfortable. So I know, like, for the music was done by Buell.org. Talk to me about working with them and coming up with the music for the film.
별별.org. We call it 모임별 in Korean. And they're a loose group of creators who also do artistic direction, but also they are a band as well. So they have a musical band, and I love their music actually, and I thought that this film would be a good medium to kind of co-work with 모임별. So you'll probably, did you feel that it was kind of?
To me, it felt, at the beginning of the film, to me it felt kind of very off-putting, and it felt, That's literally what I put in my notes. It felt off putting on a bit disorienting for me. It could be because of my own how music feels to me, because I'm the kind of person music actually gives me a physical sensation. So when I was listening to it, it kind of made me feel like I was just like I feel anxious.
Okay. It wasn't really our intention to make someone anxious, but still we didn't want the texture to be too clean or too clean cut, because this is not that kind of film, I guess. And so we tried to make a variation of themes in the film, and kind of progress. As the film goes. So at the beginning, it's kind of as you say, it's not that comfortable, I guess. But towards the end of the film, I really wanted to put a release of emotions. So I think we used more of the music that could make you feel comfortable. 해소라고 해야 될까요? So toward the end of the film, kind of put that in, and for the texture, I kind of like that kind of texture. That's not just all clean cut. It kind of makes it more interesting to me. So.
It does, because I read it as kind of like being representative of all three characters. Like they each have their own, to me, sound and feel. Like the film gives each of them their own musical identity in a sense. And that's important because like it's talking about musicians, you know, like they were in the music industry, and like they have the way they relate to music is very different. You know, like Tae, he's always, like we talked about singing, you know, he sings and performs, whereas for Sarang, I was wondering at the beginning, like, what is she always listening to? You know, like she always has headphones. Like, what kind of music is she listening to? And then it's like kind of like once we hear what she's listening to, it's almost like a techno kind of like hyper music, and like she bounces around and like she gets very she really lets her emotions that way. But for Sumin, I was trying to figure out like what would be her musical identity. For you, like what would you describe as her musical identity?
To be honest, I didn't think of Sumin as having a musical identity, which is telling, I think, because there actually are some K-pop stars who aren't really that interested in music.
And that makes sense. There are people, you know, if they're working in a particular industry, like once they're out of it, they don't want anything really to do with it. And even for like Tae, he sings trot. He's not the music and he's singing isn't like pop music or anything. Like when he's performing for the workers in the front, he's singing like trot music, right? And like which is like you wouldn't expect that from someone his age. And we're gonna wrap it up. But one of the things I want us to like finish talking about is fans. That you insert a fan in this film, and I think that's important. And it's important because as we on the outside of the industry like put so much pressure on these young people, you know, like fans. I don't even like saying the word. I don't like referring to K-pop artists as idols. I actually prefer calling them artists or musicians, because to me, when you use the word idol, you're putting these people on a pedestal, and you're putting them too high in a place that they shouldn't be, you know. And like when they fall, if they make a mistake, they're falling so far and so hard, and like, it puts too much expectations on them to be an idol, to perform. And fans, they look at these people, they look at them as being infallible, you know. They shouldn't be able to make mistakes. They're perfect, they're beautiful, they're pretty, you know, they're talented, great dancers and all of this, but they're human. And many of them start out as children, and they're constantly performing for these fans, and the fans don't even see them as actual human beings. Like the fan that's inserted, she kind of makes a reference to a parrot, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of fans see them as pets.
Well, for my characters, I wasn't that harsh.
No, it's not harsh, but that's just like how in general I think about how fans in general look at K-pop artists.
Yes, there is an aspect of that in especially that's why we call them idols, not musicians or artists, because there is an aspect that they consume this image of perfection in a way. But also I think they have this culture, the fan culture, that they also prize them as human beings as well. It's just I think it's just the culture, the way we consume these groups. So no offense to fans really, because they have their own code. But our character, she's not in the fan club, and she's kind of an awkward individual. So she keeps, crossing the lines.
Yeah.
And I thought of that as, I guess, a mistake that most of the fans and most of the artists, they have this line that they don't cross. But this kid, she's 눈치 없어요 enough to just cross the line. But that's how these people get hurt, and they show each other, and then it can be a more, I guess, stronger bond after that. So that's what I tried to make in this film, actually, because it they crossed the line somehow and then got hurt because of that. But in a way that I think can be a way to understand each other better, and as human beings. So
because she learns to see them as people and not just as idols and artists, but the thing is, and I think it's important to add in the fan perspective, because the way how social media is now has changed the way that fans interact with artists and celebrities in general very differently. They look at them as being friends and personal friends. People call it parasocial relationships now.
Yes.
And they cross boundaries way too easily. They speak to these artists as though they're their personal friends and say things, like, as you mentioned, that are very insensitive and very callous, and they don't think about, this could hurt their feelings, But I like that for this character, like, she learns to see them as people, and she apologizes. I thought that was very important.
Yes, that's true. Because I think that's how we actually realize that there's a human aspect to these people, and the way the fans consume these images is kind of a facade, and the whole point is that we're humans here, and I guess that's kind of the message. Let's not forget we're humans here. So I don't know if I'm making my point.
No, you are. It's about humanizing them. It's about reminding the audience that while these three characters in the film are fictional, they're based on real people, and you're telling us these are how they think about their situations and their lives, And what I also thought was very interesting, I mentioned like the apology. In Korean culture in particular, me being someone looking in from the outside, I've always been fascinated, but I was kind of weirded out by how, in particular, K-pop artists and idols in particular are expected to apologize for things that are not their fault.
Yes.
And like for the three characters, they're constantly apologizing. They're always apologizing and bowing and deference. And while showing respect and deference is a part of Korean culture, like they are doing it excessively.
Yes.
And I like that in this film, they didn't apologize. Someone else apologized to them. And even the guy in the orchard, he's like, just go have fun.
Yes.
And he's telling them, he's telling her not to work, not because he doesn't want her to work, but he's realized, these kids have only always been working, yes. And like, I like that for once, like people were looking out for them, that people were apologizing to them and telling them, you go have fun, like don't take on responsibility.
Yes. So I wanted the people they met here to be, just people, decent people that we would expect of each to, we would expect them to be like that. But in the culture, it kind of seems like somehow we're not like that. So I wanted them to meet these real people and actually feel it.
Yeah. You finally get to be looked at as regular people.
Yes. So, the film is about these kids, but to me, I think many young Korean kids will feel will feel a lot of the same things that these kids are feeling, because they're really pressured to work hard, study hard. If you have to get results, and if you don't get results, you're not valued as much. So we have this culture of workaholism, I think, and so that's what I wanted to touch in with these kids' story as well.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Again, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, and for making this film. And you were commissioned, but I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think it's so important that it happened now. I think it happened at the one of the most important times, because it's because K-pop is getting such a wider international attention. People need to understand just how it works, and people need to understand how it affects young people, but also, I think, from a cultural and personal perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey.